So just go out there and do the things that you want to do. You have to be willing to offend. And I say this in the book, some people are offended by the fact that you even had the nerve to have a dream. Your dreams are offensive to people. So I'm in pursuit of truth and freedom, always.
What would the world look like if people felt like they mattered? Welcome to the Lead with Love podcast, exploring what it means to lead with love in business and life. I'm your host, Jada Selner, and in this show, I'll share meaningful conversations to help you, the creative, the entrepreneur, the world changer, reach more people, go after your dreams, and serve your community with love. I appreciate you joining me. Now, let's get cozy and start today's episode. I'm so excited to have this cozy conversation with my dear friend, Rachel Luna. Today, we'll be talking about books, taking confident action, and giving ourselves permission to offend. Now, Rachel Luna is not only my co-writing accountability partner. We've both been working on our books this year, but we'll also cover what it means to take care of our bodies, move through grief, and how to balance healing, motherhood, and business. And Rachel is amazing. She is an international speaker, a certified Master Neuroscience and life coach to 7- and 8-figure earning entrepreneurs, and the host of the popular podcast, Permission to Offend, which we're definitely going to dig into. And this podcast has listeners in over 90 countries around the world, which I think is so amazing. Rachel is also a former U.S. Marine, so she's fierce and compassionate and will call you out and in to make true transformation in your life. I've seen her do this in real time. She is phenomenal at what she does when she's coaching people and getting them to the truth and the heart of what really matters. She's also been named by Forbes as one of the 11 is one of my favorite numbers, most inspiring female entrepreneurs to follow on Instagram. And you can actually follow her at Girl Confident. And Rachel also guides people on how to manifest their desires in just 5 minutes a day through her faith-activated journal experience, and host a live event called Confidence Activated. I'm so excited to get cozy with Rachel because she is working on her next book along with me. Obviously, we're not working on the same book together, but we are parallel playmates in publishing books at the same time. So get ready for this soulful conversation with Rachel. Rachel, hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Gosh, what a long intro.
You're so phenomenal.
I was like, gosh, maybe I should shorten this thing. But I'm so grateful to be here. And thank you for sharing all of my work and the things that just matter so much to me. I'm honored, friend.
Yes. And I wanted to rewind a bit we were hotel roommates in Las Vegas. And do you remember when the first time is that we met? Was it at that event in Las Vegas, or did we meet sooner in person? I was trying to figure that out.
No, that was the first time we met in person.
We're so bold and courageous. We like slept in the same room together. We were at this event for entrepreneurs in Las Vegas, sharing the stage with Gary Vaynerchuk, Hal Elrod, Mariah Cause, and we were the representation as the women of color on the stage for sure.
Yes, we were. We were the tokens. And you know what? I will say, you are such a wonderful, gifted speaker. And what I loved about watching you that day was there's just this energy about you that is so calming, but also so sharp. And I think that sometimes people don't really pick up on that right away, just how brilliant you are. And you came in and you were just the way that you speak now, that's how you were on stage. And you just delivered. It was like, boom, 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 value, value, value. So much so that the organizer of that event, he was like, I'm going to call an audible, which by the way, was the first time I had ever heard that term. I'm going to call an audible and we're going to bring Jada back up to talk some more. And I was just like, wow, this woman is amazing.
I totally forgot about the encore. Thank you for that beautiful reflection. And something that we are writing book partners where we show up on Zoom together and basically keep each other accountable to writing, editing, working on our books. We use a technique. Well, I use a technique called Pomodoros, where you set the timer for 25 minutes, take a break for 5 minutes, and we just write. What's the longest that you've spent on your book, like longest stretch of time? I'm just really curious.
It was the writing workshop that you referred me to.
Mm-hmm.
That I locked myself in my office. And actually, I write about that retreat in my book, ironically. And it was 2 days. And I remember you would write for 1 hour and then have like a 5-minute break and then write for another hour and then have like a 5-minute break. So I guess I feel like I've probably sat down and just written just straight through probably 3-4 hours at a time, no break.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I know, and that's the Tom Bird retreat. And he, that actually helped me write my 30,333 words in 3 days. It's a fierce container for you to just write consistently and not let that inner critic hop in. And he talks about the Da, right? Which is like the divine author within. What was that? Well, maybe we'll save it for the book because I'm like, ooh, now I want to read how you interpreted that experience. But I'd love for us to just, because we haven't talked in a couple of weeks or maybe even months, we've been head down in both of our books, but give me an update on your book right now. And I'd love to do, and I'll do the same.
Okay, well, I'm thrilled right now to report that I turned in. Okay, so let's rewind a little bit because remember, I had a fantastic editor. She left the company to go freelance, which is great for her. But then I was kind of an orphan, if you will. I got, and by the way, the book had sat on her desk for weeks before she decided to I'm not going to be here anymore. So I never got revisions from her. I got a new editor. So then she had to spend a couple weeks with the book. So there was a period of about 2 or 3 months where my book was just not on my desk and probably not on anyone else's desk. To be honest with you, just hanging out there in the email cosmos. And my new editor is amazing. I've really enjoyed working with her. So she gave me edits back. And then of course I had to go in and, the grueling process of someone telling you your baby's ugly in so many different ways. And thankfully it wasn't really bad, to be honest with you. So anyway, I get these edits back and I have, 2 or 3 weeks to turn them around, but I'm going into a launch and then I have my event. And I had specifically said, if you get this back to me after this date, I can't do anything with it until these 2 big rocks in my life are moved. So that was so frustrating for me because guess when I got the edits back, right before the 2 big rocks were in position. So I was trying to get it done before my event, which you mentioned, Confidence Activated. We hosted that event in 2019. We did it again in 2021. And of course, we're doing it again in 2022.
Yay!
I have a fun story about that too. But anyway, so I was supposed to get it back to her before the event and I could not do it, Jada. So I wrote her back. I was like, I can't. I will get to this after my event. And I finally turned it in. And of course, I'm biting my nails. I hope I've done this book justice. I knew we weren't finished though, because there was 2 areas where I was like, I know this isn't where it needs to be, but I've done all that I can. And I need you to ask me questions in a different manner to pull out the right structure, to pull out the right experience for the reader, to really help the reader feel like this was written for her.
Yeah.
Calls me, which was odd because that's
right.
She doesn't usually say. So I'm like, uh-oh. And the first thing she says to me is, are you trying to make me cry? And I said, well, if you're crying and it's a good thing, then yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I don't know how to answer this question. And then she says, I'm crying. You nailed it. What you've done with, and we had been going back and forth about the introduction because I did not want to write an introduction. I hate introductions. I feel like let's just get to it. But she felt very strongly that as a first time published, I have a book that I self-published, but as a first time traditionally published author, the readers would want to know. So, I took what she had sent me in terms of an introduction and I threw it away. And I did. I was like, I'm not that. That's not me at all. And I must have written the introduction, hand to God, Jada, probably 12, 13 times. Different stories, different openings, different ways. And one version was really, really good. But I chose not to go with that because the story wasn't just my own story. And it was like, I did not want the other person involved to read it and feel exposed, even though there were no identifiers. But when someone's talking about it, and then it's on a book in airports and Barnes and Noble, and hundreds of thousands of people could potentially one day read it. So anyway, I was kind of nervous with my second choice story. She loved it. Then we get on a call, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but gosh, I'm just going to say it. But listen, everybody listening, we don't repeat it. Okay? Like we just keep this secret between us. So we finally have our meeting, and she says, I was really nervous when you asked me for more time because I've been disappointed by authors lately. They sold me this big idea. They told me that they were going to write this incredible book. And she said, and I'm getting lazy first drafts, phoned in first drafts, lazy edits. She said, but I feel like you have touched every single page in this book and somehow made it better than it already was. And of course, I'm crying, John. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's happening. Because the fact is, I spent so much time and I read every single of those 70,000 words, word for word, to try to make it better, more compelling, more gripping, more entertaining, more practical, more strategic, just more without making too much.
Yeah. And I know, I remember our last co-writing session when you made that trade-off to like, I've got to pause on the book and prioritize this product launch and the event. But then you came back and you went under, like you went deep to do that intense work. And I think what's really beautiful about the book writing process, and what I think, both you and I are learning, is we have multiple drafts before we even send in our first draft to our editor, right? That we are working out our thoughts and our stories and strategies and tools and tips and all of those things. And I think it's a perfect segue to actually ask you, because I feel like you do put like that stamp of love on everything that you build and create. What does leading with love mean to you? And how do you put love into practice in your business and life?
Leading, that is such a beautiful question. And to be honest, I've never really taken the moment to think about it until right now. For me, I would say that leading with love is really about tapping into empathy and my empathetic nature, which I think some of us it's a little more natural for some people versus other people, but we all do have that ability to say like, I see you. I see your perspective. Maybe I don't agree with it. Maybe that's not how I would do it, but I see you. I see how you got there. I see why that matters to you, and I'm listening. So I would say that I lead with love through empathy. And what was the second part of the question?
How do you put that into practice inside your business or your life? Maybe there's a specific example of how you express that empathy and seeing people, even if you don't agree with them.
Well, it goes back to, I just had this event, Confidence Activated. And man, if ever was a moment where I had to lead with love, it was everything leading up to it. And if anybody's listening, you can listen to episodes 59 and 60 of my podcast, Permission to Offend, because it was such a monstrous, it took 2 episodes, Jada, to story of like everything that was coming up against me. And if you're talking about a will and a resilience and a grit to bring something to life, that was everything that I had to embody to bring the 2021 experience to life. And one of the things that happened is I hired an event planner kind of at the last hour just to help me with some little things like getting a stage together and putting up balloons and like the decor aspect of it. And we had an agreement on flowers and we had an agreement on what the stage would look like. And when I got into the room, none of it looked like the vision that I thought we agreed upon. And more specifically, the flowers and the stage background. Now, the flowers, when they came on the trolley bed, they were beautiful. And I was like, oh, how pretty those flowers, right? But then she brings them up on these columns, these white columns. And there are it's Jada, it looked like a funeral arrangement. It looked like, and I literally said out loud, I said, where's the body? Where's the casket? Like, this isn't right. So I was joking with, like my inner circle about where's the body. But then, of course, I have to have this conversation with this young woman. And I look at her and I say, okay, these are beautiful. They're not what we agreed on. That this is not what I thought that we were going to have. Like, where's my pampas grass? What's going on here? And she says, oh, I thought I had some creative liberty. Now, my really good friend is a lawyer by trade. She doesn't practice law anymore, but that was her thing for a really long time. And she steps in and she goes, what kind of creative liberty did you think you had? Because this, and I go, well, I did say, and my friend looks at me, she goes, no, not you. I'm talking to her. Mm-mm. Because the lawyer in me has arrived. And I just threw my hands up. I said, okay. And I took a step back. And I think that sometimes as a leader, you do have to take a step back and you have to let things unfold. You have to let people show up and clean up after themselves, right? The mom in me is like, oh, let me help you clean up. But the leader really has to say like, okay, hold on, let me just take a step back and let me see how the players are going to move. And so long story short, we start looking at emails and kind of the pictures and none of it is right. And I said, look, it's already late. Let's just get rid of all the flowers, take them all out of here, take those columns out, just take it all away. I said, I don't care what you do with the flowers, donate them. I said, please don't throw them away because they were expensive, but maybe you can drop them off at a hospital. We can donate them somewhere. Like, they don't need to be in this room. Let's get rid of the backdrop. Let's just get rid of everything and just keep the stage nice and clean. And you could put this, because the other issue was that she didn't measure the furniture as compared to the amount of stage that we had. And it looked like every piece of furniture the rental company had was up on that stage. And so I said, let's just, pare it down. So I say, okay, great. My team, my assistant, who's really like my right hand, she says, all right, well, you go upstairs because you have to get ready for tomorrow. I got this. Great. I go upstairs, right? Because as a leader, you do need to empower your team. That is an act of love, right? Me micromanaging is not loving. It's actually hindering and it's hurting everybody. So I lead with love. I step back, I go up to my room and I get a phone call from someone else on my team. She's like, I know you said you didn't want the flowers, but the girl is saying that maybe she could do this. And in the morning we could try. And this is where I really feel like I leaned on empathy as a leader. And I really tried to show up in love because, old me, we're always evolving, but old me would have lost my shiznit, Jada. The old me would have been like, you people are not listening to me. What did I say? And la, la, la. This is like the old me would have just gone from 0 to 120 and everybody would have had a really bad night. But thank God we grow and we evolve. And I said, okay, I hear what you're saying. And I know that you're trying to fix it. I know that she's trying to fix it, but it's 11 o'clock at night. Or it was almost 11, right? I said, it's almost 11 at night. And our responsibility now needs to shift from getting the room in order and pretty to taking care of our attendees. And there's no way that we can give our attendees an incredible, warm, happy reception and welcome if, number one, you're sleep deprived, and number two, your attention is split. Before we go to bed tonight, the room needs to be done. So whatever you can get done with the room, let's get it done. Take everything out, like I said before, leave it blank. And I want everyone on the team in their rooms ready for bed no later than 11:30 p.m. Because when we wake up tomorrow, it's no longer about, does the room look right? Is it pretty enough? Our attention has to shift completely to, how can we make this the most incredible experience for our guests? And I'm complete and I'm happy. I'm not mad. Nobody needs to feel like this is a loss or we failed. We're just changing plans and it's fine. And it was fine. The room didn't look the way that I envisioned. A lot of things didn't come out the way that I had envisioned, but we still had an incredible experience. And I know that the women who were in there, their lives were transformed. And we had a billionaire as our keynote speaker, for crying out loud. Jamie Kern Lima, the founder of A Cosmetics, who sold her company to L'Oreal for $1.2 billion, flew herself in to speak on my stage, ended up giving us 18-karat gold bracelets, every single person, including my team, our volunteers, our AV. Like, if you were in the room, you got an 18-karat gold bracelet that said believe. I mean, it was just such an incredible experience. And at the end of the day, do you think that people were thinking, shouldn't there be flowers up there? Or how come there's no backdrop? No, they weren't. And that was an opportunity for me as a leader to not trigger a negative response in their nervous system by losing my cool and getting all crazy about a situation that really didn't need to be an issue anymore.
Yeah, I love how you did meet with empathy and compassion, but you also showed up with confidence of like, here's the plan moving forward. The vision didn't, turn out the way that you envisioned. And you knew that where the intention was to really take care of the attendees. And something that you have the faith activated journal experience, and it's about journaling your way to confidence, money, and freedom. And I've actually see you walk your talk, even on our co-writing calls, where if you get stuck, all of a sudden you're journaling, you get triggered, you're journaling. Can you tell me a little bit about your journaling, just your process and your approach to that? And yeah.
I love journaling because for me, it is a form of intimacy with myself. It's a way that I cultivate an intimate relationship with myself. And I remember, years ago when people would talk about self-love and having an intimate relationship with themselves, I would roll my eyes and think like, that is the stupidest thing. You people are dumb. Are you crunchy granola, woo-woo, but what I've come to realize is that response is a fear-based response. And it's the response of someone who doesn't understand what true intimacy even looks like. It's the response of someone who's afraid of intimacy, afraid of connecting with themselves, because, oh my gosh, what if I actually get to know who I am and I don't even like me? Who else will like me if I don't like me? So I've always been a diary keeper, right? Growing up, I was a diary keeper. I was always writing to emote what was going on. And because I had such a traumatic childhood, both of my parents had AIDS and my mom died when I was 3.5, and I was abused and I battled alcoholism. It was just like one bad card after another. And I would use my diary to sort of, I guess, vent is a good word. So there came this point where I realized that the emoting wasn't helping me create a new reality. It was just kind of keeping things the same. And at that time, by the time I decided to switch the way that I journal, I had just found out that my on again, off again boyfriend of 3 years was actually quite happily married. And I was in the Marine Corps, and my boss had just pulled me into the office to tell me that I would look better in uniform if I lost 10 pounds, and he would give me a better like proficiency and conduct score on the Christmas tree. It's a Marine Corps thing, but basically he would give me a better performance evaluation if I lost weight. So, and I was $40,000 in debt. So like I'm fat, I'm broke, I'm an adulterous whore, like everything was going so wrong. And I just remember thinking like, how do I keep finding myself in these places? Like, I don't think that God created me to be this person that I'm being, or to have this life that I have, and I want something different. And so I hired a life coach, and I remember the first thing that we did that really impacted me. It was this checklist called the clean sweep. And it was 100 little things. The goal was to do 100 of these little things every single day. And it was basic things like make your bed, wash a dish, just like things so that your life is in order. And it took me months to be able to finally do all the 100 things. But something kind of shifted. And then I thought, okay, I'm a different person, but I'm still writing the same things. I'm going to try this manifesting thing that I heard about. So I started keeping a journal, but this time it was a vision board journal book. So I would cut out the pictures and I would, write these affirmations, sentences. And then one day I remember just writing like what my life would be like if I were a different person. And I didn't know it then, but that would then become the framework for Faith Activated, which is to write, shift, script. So my process today, which I've honed over the last, 14 years or so, is the first thing I do when I open up my journal is I write anything. And interestingly, hold on, I actually have mine here. So let me pull it up. I love I'm always like, let me just share.
I love it.
Yeah. So sometimes my first writing will be gratitude to God. So I'm a Christian, I'm a God girl. I love the Lord. And a lot of times that's how I'll start, Father, thank you. Thank you that I can always come to you and cast all my cares at my feet. And so lately I have found that I've gone back to emoting a little bit, which is interesting. I've had a lot of feelings that typically I would kind of acknowledge, but really just breeze right through it to the other two steps. But lately I'm spending a lot of time in this writing section. And the reason why this portion of it is so important, Jada, and everyone listening, is because this is where your subconscious gets to be heard. It's where you really just get to acknowledge your truth. And a lot of people avoid it because it can be painful in the moment. But what happens when you don't give that pain, those fears, that concern, its attention, it continues to persist in the background. And you may not even be aware of it. In fact, most of the time you're not aware of it, but it's the thing that stops you from taking action in the morning. It's the thing that holds you back from putting out your offer. It's the thing that you don't even realize, but you're not creating, you're not putting content on social media because of those thoughts that are happening on the subconscious level that you have not been acknowledging. So it's really important to do this first step. So I write all the things. And then the second step is shift. And in that, I mean, you shift into a state of gratitude, into a state of expectation, into the state of being the person who has the things that you want. And so you would write a bridge statement. You could do something like, I'm so happy and excited now that. I'm so proud of myself for sitting in this journal session and doing the work because now I am. And you would say, I'm excited, I'm happy, I'm looking forward to, I really believe, I know this is possible. And then that leads you into the third step, which is to script. And then in the third step, you script your desires as if they already are. So when we were, going through the book process, I can recall many a time when I would shift and say, oh, I'm so happy and excited because I finally overcame this block that I had. And once I overcame the block, man, the writing just flowed. I finished 4 chapters. I edited them. They're perfect. I sent them to my editor. She loved it. Now I'm writing these things as if it's already happened. In fact, remember I mentioned Confidence Activated and Jamie Kern-Lima speaking at the event?
Yeah.
I remember pitching her and I sent her an email and nobody responded. I sent another email with a what no. And then I sent a video. I was doing all these things. And the whole time I was writing. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Jamie Kern-Lima said yes. She came to Confidence Activated. And then I would journal like, oh my gosh, Jamie Kern-Lima spoke at Confidence Activated. She was amazing. She came on stage and we hugged, and she gives the best hugs ever. Like, I would then take a moment to envision what that felt like to be hugged by her. And guess what? She does give the best damn hugs ever. And all of that came to life. Now, I want to be clear to say, like, this is not oh, I just write it and things happen. No, there's a lot of action that accompanies the journal practice. This is why I call the program Faith Activated, because you are unlocking something, right? You're unlocking your desires, but then there has to be a level of faith and belief and trust that what you wrote, you actually believe that you can have. And then there has to be actions that are activated in terms of like, I had to record the video, right? And I didn't just send the video and then I was done. No, I sent another email and then I sent another email and then I sent a voice message. And I did all these things in conjunction with my faith, in conjunction with my belief. And of course, every single day, I always brought it back to my faith practice where I was like, God, thank you. Thank you that you said that you would prepare a way for me. Thank you that your word says that you are sending angels before me to prepare the way. Thank you that you desire to bless me with so much blessings that even the storehouses are over flooded and the floodgates are broken with blessings. So all of that is part of the experience that brings about, the results that you desire.
I love that transformation from the writing to shift to script. And I'm curious for those, and I love that you shared the story of the resistance at first and kind of transforming from diary and just venting and emoting to actually transforming your beliefs and opening up for possibility and planting those seeds. I'm curious for those for like that step one who don't have a practice of diary writing, right? That are not even venting yet, that they are kind of holding it all in and all that stuff is happening in their subconscious. What's your recommendation for someone like that doesn't even have a journal right now, or they have a bunch of empty journals and they're too pretty to write in?
That is my favorite when people say, I don't want to mess it up. Mess it up. Like, that's why it's there. And the fact that you're afraid to mess it up is one of the reasons why you probably need to start journaling more than ever, so that we can peel back the layers of what is your fear of not being perfect? What is your fear? What are you making it mean that something is messy, that your handwriting is messy, that your journal is messy? What would it look like if you just let yourself write something? So I always say, just start. And that's why I truly believe the value and the benefit of something like the program that I offer, Faith Activated, is that you have that community, so you're not doing it alone. If we have someone to do it with us, it's not as scary as if I'm in this room by myself. The next thing I would say is to release your expectation of what you think your journal practice should and should not be, or should and should not look like. It's different for everybody. So you have to give yourself that permission to cultivate your own experience. A lot of times, another thing that I hear is like, I want to make sure that I do it right. The only way to do it wrong is to not do it at all. Everything else is just practice. And that's what I teach is like, this is your journaling practice. Just like a doctor, right? Doctors have a practice. What are they doing? They're just practicing on us. Like, this is based on what I'm seeing, I think this is what you might have. Every time a surgeon cuts you open, they're just practicing. They don't know how it's going to go. Truly, they don't know how it's going to go. Everything in life is a 50-50. Everything. I'm a breast cancer survivor. And I remember when I first got diagnosed, it was interesting because the first thing they do when they bring you into the doctor's office is they tell you all the statistics about the particular cancer strain that you have and survival rates. And if you do this, then your survival chances increase. But if you don't, then they decrease. And it's dismal, right? And then they bring in a pharmacist to come in and tell you about all the medications that you're going to have to take to counter the chemotherapy, and to explain to you all the side effects of every chemotherapy and every counter drug. I mean, it's insanity. And I'll never forget, I got the best pharmacist because he came in. And at that time, I was very clear that I did not want to do conventional chemotherapy. I wanted to do some like adjunctive type practices and a little more naturopathic. And I was open about that. And this guy said, look, the statistics are just numbers. And the thing about a statistic is that you need a sample of people. And right now, we only have a sample of one, and that's you. And you have a 50-50 chance. And I was like, yeah, everything is 50-50. So why am I so caught up in like, what are my best odds? My best odds are that I show up and do my job, period.
Yeah. I'm curious for you, being a breast cancer survivor, and thank you for sharing that. I know that you share publicly about it. How did you manage the grief and, the healing journey while balancing your business and motherhood? Like, you wear a lot of hats.
No, there is no balance. There's no balance whatsoever. It's all momentum.
Tell me more.
So let's unpack that. I could not balance healing, being a mother, continuing to generate leads and revenue and deliver. There was just no way, in particular, because I had chosen, as I mentioned before, a more naturopathic approach. So I chose to heal with the Gerson therapy, which is at the peak when you're all in. It's 13 fresh pressed juices a day and 5 coffee enemas and over 90 individual supplements and pills that you're taking and shots and IVs and oh my gosh, and all organic, and the food has to be prepared in such a way, and the soup has to be made and it has to be milled, and you can't put in a food processor. Just all these rules, which I think is so funny because I don't like rules. I don't like rules at all. And there was just this moment where I really had to surrender. It's interesting. If we want to talk about leading with love, like I mentioned before, sometimes leading with love is really taking a step back and letting others show up for you. So that's what I did. I took a big step back. So remember, Confidence Activated 2019 happened. Greatest event ever. It was such a hit. I loved it. And then 3 days later, I find this lump. And then 30 days to the day of when Confidence Activated ended is when I got diagnosed with breast cancer. At Confidence Activated, I had just sold this mastermind. So I had just sold a, 5-figure mastermind that I had to deliver. And now I had breast cancer to deal with too. And I did my best. I showed up. I was in a hospital in Mexico. I would get my treatments or whatever. And then I would show up on my Zoom calls. And there were a couple of times when I could not. I was too sick, Jada. I was so sick. I could not even, oh my gosh. I remember some days I was in so much pain. I couldn't even breathe. And that's when I just leaned on my community and my friends. And my friend Patrice Washington showed up and she led one of my coaching calls. My friend Andra Bolden showed up and she did a sales training for them. And so I just let people help me and I let myself be helped. That was important. I think sometimes, especially women in particular, if you have the reputation of you're the strong one, you're the reliable one, you're the dependable one, and now the tables have turned, like you really have to let yourself be the one that is taken care of by someone else. And you have to allow yourself to recognize that you are worthy of that help.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and here's another, I'll share this. This just happened yesterday. So I signed up for this, like a planning retreat type thing. And one of the things that they send you is this personalized box. Now, the box is part of the experience, right? When you get the box, there's one piece that you're supposed to open immediately. And then the rest, we open it as we're going through the sessions, right? Now, I have 1,000,001 restrictions, right? All of my food has to be all organic. I'm very sensitive to fragrance now because I've detoxed so much that and I'm allergic to lavender. There's just a lot of things. So I send out my specs. And then I get an email last night from the guy that does the shipping. And he says, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. I sent you the box, but I did not swap out all the things to meet your requirements. He's like, I'm so sorry. There's something coming and it's got a ton of fragrance. And then all the treats that we sent, none of those treats are going to be within your dietary restrictions. I'm so sorry. He says, but this is what I want to do. Because by the way, this thing starts on Friday. He says, I'm going to send you a label. When that box comes in, put the label on it, drop it off. I will swap out everything and send you another box. And I started to write back to him no, don't worry about it. It's fine. I'll have my husband get rid of the smelly stuff. I'll give my kids the treats. And as I start to write it, I was like, no, I deserve the full experience. I'm worthy of the full experience. I'm worthy for someone to be bothered to give me a great experience. And here's the thing, I didn't pay for this, right? The value of this experience is $500, but someone gave me the ticket. So at first I was like, but I didn't even pay for it. They shouldn't. No, I'm worthy. Let them be bothered. Let them go through all the trouble. I'm worth the trouble.
Yeah, that was the gift of grief for me in 2019 too. That was my biggest lesson, was to learn how to receive love. I have always been really good at giving love, at being love, at showing up for others, adding value and all of that. And I think when these unexpected moments in our life happen, where we have to take a step back, as you shared, to heal, that as leaders, we need to be held to, that we are worthy of receiving and being loved up on. And it is, I did very similar to you, where I ran a group mastermind program, then had friends, Nikki Elledge Brown, my mindset coach, just people just stepping in so that I could take a step back. So I love that you shared that there is no balancing. It's really being able to step back and receive help, and that you don't have to hold all the pieces on your own. And I think that those type of moments are the things that teach us how to stretch our capacity in receiving, not just in giving and doing and showing up and all those pieces. So
you know what else too, but being able to ask for help. And one thing I work with a lot of women who I don't like asking for help. And then I always throw it back on them. Do you like helping people? Yeah. Do you like it when people ask you for help? How does it make you feel? It makes me feel like I have purpose. I love it. I said, okay, well, every time you don't ask for help, you are robbing someone else of that experience, of that joy, of that purpose, of that knowing that they added value.
Yes. There's even a practice that I started when people offer to pay for a meal. I would be like, no, I got it. Pulling out my card and no. And now anytime someone offers, I immediately allow myself to receive. It's a very simple and small practice, but that's just a way to build that muscle and not take that act of service and that gift from someone else. It's just okay, there's a reason why they feel called to cover the tab, and just allow yourself to receive and pay it forward to somebody else. So yeah.
Yeah. I always say, I'll take a blessing. Thank you.
Yes. And speaking of one thing, your podcast is called Permission to Offend. And I definitely want to link to those episodes that you mentioned in the show notes. But tell me about Permission to Offend. Where did that title come up in your brain, in your ideation process of what does that mean to you? And what's the origin story of Permission to Offend?
Well, interestingly, I wasn't sitting around thinking, I wonder what I'll call. No, it was not like that at all. I was speaking at an event and they had brought me on to speak about sales confidence. And I was asking a woman, like, why haven't you put your offer out there or something like that? Or why aren't you following up? Some sort of salesy question. And she said, I just don't want to offend anybody. And the words just flew out of my mouth. And I said, offend them. You got to give yourself permission to offend. Like, people are going to be offended no matter what you do. You can try to live your life according to someone else's plan, and they will still be offended that, you did it and you missed the step, or it didn't turn out the way that they expect. Like, people are going to be offended regardless. So just go out there and do the things that you want to do. You have to be willing to offend. And I say this in the book, some people are offended by the fact that you even had the nerve to have a dream. Your dreams are offensive to people. So I'm in pursuit of truth and freedom, always, right? I'm always on the hunt for, how can I be my truest self? How can I be my most fully self-expressed? How can I live in total freedom today? Because the reality is, if you live in the United States, we live in a relatively free society. Now, with mandates and things like that, I don't know that we could say we're totally free, but that's for another day. But I always think, God gave us free will. And it's such a gift. Who am I to not use that gift to the best of my ability, even at the cost of how other people feel? I remember one time my husband and I were going through a rough patch, and I said to him, I don't think you like me. I know you love me, but I don't think you like me, like my personality or who I am. And he said, I do like you. I just wish you were a little less you. And I remember I just looked at him. In my mind, I thought, man, you're a real asshole. This is exactly why, I'm leaving your ass. Like, I was thinking those things. So for anybody listening, don't think those thoughts didn't come through my mind. But I remember my response. I said, well, then you don't like me, because I can't be less me. Right? Every time I make myself less, I lose a part of myself. And I've been trying to make myself less me for so many people that I'm starting to forget who I am. And I know that if I get to the point where I am any more or less than who I really am, I won't be able to live anymore. And I remember in that season, I was in a really dark depression, and I would never kill myself, because I don't believe that that's the answer. But I did have a lot of suicide ideation. And I remember thinking, I remember driving one road in particular when we lived in California, and it's on a cliff. And I remember thinking, gosh, it would be so freeing to just run my car off the road, and just like, I would be so free in that moment. And I remember how both frightening and exhilarating those thoughts were. And for me, that was a turning point. Like, I wanted to live. I didn't want to kill myself. I just didn't want to live the way other people wanted me to live. And the fact that I would even think for a second that killing myself and jumping off a cliff or driving off a cliff would be an answer was a wake-up call for me that, listen, people are going to be offended. I'm going to get it wrong. A lot of people are not going to agree with my decision, but this is my life, and I want to live it fully. And living it fully means honoring my truth all the time, or choosing not having that choice taken away from me, or me not giving that choice away to other people.
Yeah, there was this poem called The Invitation by Araya Mountain Dreamer. And there's this one line that always speaks to me. And it says, I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself. And that just feels so much the essence of what permission to offend. It is an act of love, of self-love, to be whole and true to yourself, which I think is really, really powerful. Yeah. There's so much more I want to talk to you about, but I also know we'll have another conversation.
Yes, we will.
When our books are out in the world. You're with Harper One, I'm with Harper Business. I feel like we're like business traditional book publishing twinsies. I'm curious if there's anything that you want to say or share that we haven't covered that you'd love to share in this moment before we start to wrap up this conversation.
Oh my gosh, something to share? I don't know. What do I want to share, Jada?
You may have I've said it all. I've poured it out all out on this audio, and that's totally fine. I always just like to open it up in case there's something that's tugging on your heartstrings.
I mean, the only thing I could really share is to keep really digging for your truth and just ask, is this what I want today? Do I really want this? When someone says, hey, can you go get me this? Do I really want to get up and get it? No. So why am I getting up and getting it? Right? Like, really start to think, where am I being less of myself? Where am I being less fully self-expressed to make someone else feel more comfortable? Yeah. And what would happen if I just stopped doing that?
I love it. I love it. I have this image of my husband because he's an overgiver. He's so generous. And I love when he takes a stand for himself, because anytime we see him like stand up, we're like, oh, can you get us? My daughter and I are both like, can you get us some water? Can you get us, can you turn the light off? Can you? And there's just sometimes where he's like, no, you get it. So I love that. Like just the small moments of like being like really checking in with yourself. Is this true? Do I want to do that in this moment? And it doesn't mean that couldn't shift in a different moment, but really checking in with your truth moment by moment, especially, in the present, and doesn't mean that you can't change or shift that later. And obviously, if people learn more about your faith activated journaling, that they can write and shift and script and ultimately transform so that they can honor their truth in this process, in this life, and this body.
Yeah. When is this airing? Do you know?
I think it'll be in a couple weeks, maybe 2 weeks.
Oh, because we'll be opening up a journal experiment. I always like to give people a little taste of it. And that's happening in January 10th, 2022. So anybody listening, if you follow me on Instagram, you can get the link, because I don't have the link ready at the time of this recording.
Yeah. Just send it to me and we'll pop it in.
I'll send it to you. And that way, if anybody wants to give it a try and just see what it's like, it's totally free. I teach you the whole method. I break it all down for you. We journal together, all the things.
Ooh, I love it. And I love that you're designing an experience so that you're doing it in community, because I think that's what both you and I have learned, the power of community. That's why we scheduled our co-writing sessions. So we had them in our calendar and the Zoom link right there. And we need each other. We need those warm bodies that are like in it and doing the work side by side. So I think that that's going to be a beautiful experience. And I definitely will add that link in the show notes when you have it. And people can obviously go to your website. Where would they go to do that?
They would go to rachelluna.biz.
Yay. I love you to pieces, Rachel. Thank you for sharing your voice, your message, and I look forward to a future conversation so we can talk about our book babies.
Yay. Thank you for having me. I love you so much, friend.
Thank you so much for your heart and attention and listening to Lead with Love. You can always get the links and resources mentioned in each episode over at leadwithlovepodcast.com so that you can build a sustainable business and live a creative life on your terms. If this message, Leading with Love, resonates with you and you want to take a stand for remembering that there are humans with beating hearts behind the numbers, I would love for you to subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave an honest review. It would mean the world to me, and it also helps more people spread more love in the world, which we really, really need. I also love hearing from you. So as you're listening, take a screenshot, share your favorite takeaway, and tag me on Instagram and Facebook at Jada Selner. I really appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.